All right, we are going live here on YouTube, and let's make sure we are going live on LinkedIn as well. All right, so making sure we are good. Yep, we are. All right, hello everyone, welcome. I should start calling these Coffee with Dr. V because I do have my coffee here. All right, so we're going to, excuse me, jump right on in. Welcome. So this is still a continuation of our Opulent Thinking for Opulent Opportunities series, and it was just supposed to be for October, but I was like, well, let's just keep the series going. And the framework we're following are the eight standards for mathematical practice. But I'm not here to teach you about mathematics, but I'm just using it as a framework because it is about the way we show up and think. And if you're not getting certain opportunities right now, it could be because you are not, it could be the way that you are thinking. So, like I said before, in mathematics, we expect students to think a certain way to solve problems. And why don't we do that in our, yeah, why can't we do that in our adult life? So, if you want the foundation part of that, because I'm not going to go through that, it is on my YouTube channel. The first two videos on that playlist of that series, Opulent Thinking for Opulent Opportunities, it is on there because I break down how all of this ties together. So if you've been following me, we are on topic 5 or practice 5. So the actual mathematical practice, well, let me back up. The title of this is The Right Tools for Expansion, How Opulent Thinking Enhances Leadership Strategies. And remember, I talk about leadership as far as your personal leadership and you being the leader of your life, even in your career and your business. So it doesn't necessarily dictates the actual role of being a leader because in some shape, form, or fashion, we're all leaders. But we also need to understand that if you're going to be a leader, you still need to operate and think like a leader if you're not, even if you're not in that actual position. So, right tools for expansion. So the mathematical practice here, and so you can have the lens of how I'm going to talk about goal setting, personal mastery, and leadership. And you'll see a theme throughout this series where I do hit on those three things but with a different perspective on how we engage with those thoughts because sometimes we can hear things and it's like, oh, I've heard that before, or you overlook it because it's familiar, but it's not like we're out here creating, new words and things like that, but we can always up level or shift our perspective in the way we interact with those things. So use tools strategically. So in math, use appropriate tools strategically. And when this one took off in math land, around 2010, 2012, everyone was like, oh, we got to get manipulatives, or we just got to get the best technology, or we got to get the robots and things like that. And that's not really what it was about because sometimes your calculator or the Texas Instruments, you remember those, the TI 89s, 83s and 92s and things like that. Sometimes that was the tool that you needed and it wasn't just about punching numbers, it was learning how to use that for graphing, but I'm getting nerdy about that. But it was like how to use the appropriate tools strategically, not just because you had this buffet of tools and software that you just throw it in. So we expect students from kindergarten to high school, it says knowing when and how to use various tools like formulas, calculators, software efficiently and effectively to solve problems. And that's what was missing. And sometimes that could be what's missing in your whole setup. It's like I have all these things coming at me, but how am I going to use it to solve the actual problem that I'm in right now? And so the first topic we're going to talk about is goal setting. And I know you're like, okay, I am so over goal setting, but this is the time of the year where people are really looking at their 2025, 2026, and beyond goals, or just how to make sure they crush what they have remaining in 2024. So, as far as goal setting and using the tools appropriately, I am going to talk a little bit about AI, but no one should be afraid about AI. AI has been around what, since the 60s and 70s, you know? So it's not this new concept, and robots are not going to come and take over the world. However, using technology in these certain areas, especially AI, could help a lot, and we'll get into that. So goal setting, how are we going to use the tools appropriately for goal setting? And goal setting, if you really, I think I said this, I can't remember in which video, but if we approach goals as experimentations instead of, oh my gosh, I have to do this thing, you know, because I put it on my vision board. And if I don't do it, then I'm just like a nobody, I'm a loser, and all those kind of things. But if you approach them as experiments, then we can start having fun with things. We won't be so hard on ourselves. Like, yes, we hold ourselves accountable. No, we don't cut ourselves some slack and say, oh, it's okay. No, we don't do that. But you take the sting out of it if you don't accomplish, if you don't hit the mark, because when you're doing experiments, the fun is the trial and error, or the process, or let's figure out how this works, like gamify the whole thing, and you'll start approaching things differently. And so just like choosing the right tools, goal setting requires the right tools. And I know a lot of times, before I get into the software, we can just think about the framework of goal setting. You hear a lot about SMART goals. And that's because it's just been popularized, right? And in my book, Embracing Grit for Greatness, Becoming Professionally Powerful Through Personal Empowerment, down below, I talk about how SMART goals are not always so smart, because depending on where you are and what phase of the goal setting or the experiment you're in, it may not work for you, right? So there are different ways to think about goal setting. And you know, you may be like, well, why can I can't reach this, and I'm doing my SMART goals, because something may be blocking you mentally. I just put it out there. Something that triggers you or hang up on you, or something that's like a blind spot that is causing you not to. It could be the timeline. It could be the way that you're measuring it. It could be something that's not attainable, right? Or it may not be as specific, right? And you may have some issues with each one of those parts of the SMART goal, but you're not going back and adjusting that. So that may not be the right tool for you. And you'll be surprised by how the shifting of a word will just open up so many doors for you, or unblock a lot of things that are hindering you from reaching your next level. I talk about me with personal development and personal growth. Like, I still use those words, but when I came into the entrepreneurship, and I was like, wow, I really see the benefit of using this tool, but it was just still like a hang up on for me, because I'm like, personal development, it doesn't sound concrete enough, right? And there are a lot of people who have huge personal development firms and all of that, but for me, it was an issue until I shifted one little word, personal leadership. And I was like, there it is. So for you, SMART goals may not be it. And there are different types of goal setting. And this does go into using uh, appropriate tools strategically. And so we're talking about goal setting. I'm just going to name a few other ones. They have HEART goals. Did you know that? It stands for heartfelt, animated, required, and difficult. And you can go Google those so you can go in depth with those. But just think about, if you're using tools that way for your goal setting, you may accomplish your goals sooner, quicker, faster than you've expected if you've only been focusing on the SMART method. Another method is WOOP goals, WOOP, stands for wish, outcome, obstacle, and plan. Another one is OKR goals, objectives, and key results. I think Google is a whole book. I can't, now the name escapes me, but I can see the book. But they, if you know it, put it down below. But they went in and worked with, I think they worked with Google, and their whole focus was on OKR goals, for objectives and key results. And it exploded that company to get massive results. But we don't talk about that as much. And then micro goals, setting multiple smaller goals. Now, some of these things you may like, oh yeah, I know that, but if you're not using the actual tool to accomplish it, then you're not going to get the results that you're looking for. So that's how one way you can use tools strategically, use the appropriate tools. So that's not so much technology, but it is a type of tool, and to use it, how to use it so it can benefit you. So if you're struggling with SMART goals, go look up different alternatives and methods to setting up your goal system. The next one is leveraging tools for personal growth. Now, this is where you can leverage AI and other forms of software and technology instead of being so overwhelmed with it. You know, there are so many apps out there. There are so many things. A quick Google search, and that's what I did this morning. Like, well, what AI tools can I use, for daily life, as I was preparing for this? instead of being afraid of it, instead of thinking that, oh my gosh, I don't want to learn this, or learning so much or too much about, because there is, tool selection fatigue or technology fatigue, where you're learning too much about something without actually implementing. Instead of being a master of all of them, how about you find five of them based on what you're currently doing in your life? So as far as personal growth, it could be habit trackers. They have goal setting apps where you can help keep track or send you daily reminders or quotes and motivations. You can set that up for what you need. You can get tools for AI powered coaching, especially, I really don't think technology will take over human coaching and consulting, but it can do a lot of the surface level work so that true coaches and consultants and advisors can get down to really the deep work that's necessary to quantum leap you, or get you the exponential results. I just think sometimes in this industry there's too many surface level things going on, but that's another topic for another day. So like I said, it could be either productivity apps that you're using or things like that. But what I recommend is that you look at your daily life. Well, I'll get to that. But you look at what you're currently doing and you see, well, how can technology fit into what I am currently doing versus, oh my gosh, this person said I need that app, or I need to do this tool, or I need to do that. Well, let me go learn that. And it has nothing to do with what you're doing, because that's not an appropriate use of that tool. And so the next topic is leadership. So we already talked about goal setting a little bit and how to look at that as an experiment. We talk about leveraging the tools for personal growth, and I'll give you another example after that. And now we're talking about leveraging technology uh, and innovation as far as your leadership, whether that's your actual role as a leader or you as a leader in your life, your career, or your business. So this is about leveraging the right tools. And leverage is, how can I use something else so I can get the most out of this opportunity, right? Instead of me lifting up this 2-ton rock, how can I get something and put a support structure in place, and I can go pull down or pull to use that tool to catapult that rock, right? Instead of putting my nose itching, instead of putting all that effort into it. And I'm gonna say this, and then I'll get into, let me see, do I want to tell the story now? All right, let me go back. So, like I said, and I'll tell the story I'm gonna talk about. So when you're thinking about tools that are coming your way, especially in your business or even in your career, instead of being one, afraid that it's going to take over, or two, trying to learn too much you don't implement, you just say like, how does this work for me? And I don't think we ask ourselves those questions a lot. I don't think we take the time to think. It's just like, let me just go run to it because they said that this is going to work for me, or I'm going to run away from it because, you know, I don't want I don't want it to think that I don't want to be replaced by something. So I need to prove that I know what I'm doing and I'm still valuable. But here's the thing, if you embrace the tools and the appropriate ones, it will take away some of the, like I say, even in personal growth, it'll take away some of that low level task or low level thinking, so you can open up to do more of the deeper work. And that could be in your career, that could be in your business, that could be in one of the 15 to 18 areas of your life. And so how do we break this down? How does this look more practical? One way, I'm gonna give you some ways. Well, one, this I am going to tell the story. This is how I know that it could be like a mind shifting thing that you need to work through as to why you're not utilizing technology. When I was getting my doctorate degree, I did my dissertation was mixed method, so it was qualitative and quantitative. And, for qualitative, it sounds like it was all fluff work because, you go through the themes and, you do all of that. But there was a tool, I think at the time it was 𝐉𝐨𝐲, to where you can submit data and it can just, you submit your data and it can find the themes for you, versus if you sat there, read through everything, transcribed, and come through with your own themes. Now, I I tried to do the software, but because I was hung up on proving something, I did everything by hand. I did my own transcriptions, even though I could have done it, sent out and did a service or outsourced it. I sat there and did my own things. Now there is a benefit to it, to doing my own things, and I uncovered some things, but how much faster it could have gone had I used the technology to find some of the themes, because I found some things I'm like, yeah, that's not quite what I'm looking for. But then when I went back and put it in technology, it saved me so much time and it would have allowed me to do the deeper work and find the deeper results, right? But because I was so hung up on trying to prove something, so you have to ask yourself, are you not utilizing technology to do something because you're trying to prove something? Now, on the quantitative side, I had no problem using SPSS, right, to figure out those statistical analysis and things like that, even though my stronger point was to do mathematics by hand and I could do those calculations by hand. But I was like, for what? Right. So you got to ask yourself, what are you not leveraging and why aren't you leveraging, especially in this day and age where you can use tech to do so many of the basic things or even the complex things to allow you to start thinking deeper and making better decisions or having new innovative ideas because your mind isn't so clouded with, low level task or low level thinking. So that was one of the examples that I want to give you of how I utilize it and then I didn't, and what was my thought process behind not doing it. So learning how to leverage it, and if you don't do it, you'll find yourself being burned out, overwhelmed, frustrated. Your business might be losing money. You're not, you know, uh, executing on certain projects is because you are hung up on not learning something or not implementing technology because of your own personal or out your personal limited or outdated beliefs about something. So you need to take time to dig deeper into that story, so it doesn't matter who's going to come to you, no matter what consultant or strategist is going to say, "Hey, I got this plan for you and it will work." But if you don't do that deep level work, beneath the surface work, then you're not going to implement it or leverage no matter how great the opportunity is. And another way to look at, especially in your, why is my nose? Especially in your personal life, and this could go in career things. And when I talked about earlier, look at what you're already doing instead of being afraid of the technology. Some things like grocery apps, and you're using technology more than you realize it, right? You're utilizing it, but now you need to be more intentional and be more strategic about how you're doing that. And I think sometimes we bring things on ourselves. I think it was Mark, you brought that on yourself, right? There are just some things you bring on yourself. And I even looked at, here's an example before I go through this list. I'm really big on content creation, and that's part of, if you look down below, I am doing a 2-day workshop or a series of 2-day workshops on leading and leveraging your experience and your expertise. And a big part of it is about content. Now, people will say, like, oh, I'm making all this money and I don't post content, this, that, and the other. But this is really, if you want a broader impact and things like that, you do need social capital and you do need to have your own ecosystem of your thought-based leadership out there. And that's what we're talking about in the workshop. You can look down below. But I was sitting here trying to figure out, oh my gosh, like I have all these thoughts and ideas. What am I going to do? I really want to sit here and repurpose. And back in the day, I would come up with my own, even when I was a college professor, like come up with my own article topics or sit there and brainstorm or read so much and find the missing gap of certain things and what to do, and then finally come up with a topic, or sit there forever with a draft or an outline and then finally, right? But then it's like, and then so I found myself going back into those old habits. They served me for a point of time, but now with chat gpt or other types of AI powered tools that can do that research for you. I'm like, why not do that? That doesn't make me any less smart. It doesn't make you any less smart or capable. That's just saving your brain cells so that you can do the deeper work, because you're still going to need that thinking to, because I don't care how smart the AI is. First of all, I've done some consulting work on AI and they use humans on the other side, but that's another story. But and you have to still be in a place to where you can analyze and synthesize what is given to you so you can come up with a new perspective and innovative ideas, even in your content or your project that you're doing or product that you're developing. But we, but I think we end up being still doing low level stuff because we use our brain power to do the research and come up with the ideas. And by the time it's for us to do it, we're spent, or it's going to take us a couple of days to recuperate because mental work can be like exhausting. So I was like, you know what, why am I doing this? So I went in, figured out the prompts that I wanted to do, let it spit out some things. And then I was like, okay, I could take this and run with it. And then that came up with, especially like this series right here, or I still would have been in, figuring out topics, right? So anyway, I just want to say, look at what you're currently doing. And so grocery apps, meal planning, if you're trying to eat right or figure out how to organize your family life and things like that, use the technology to help you with meal planning and meal prepping. Asana or Notion to keep track of projects and task lists, instead of having stickies. And sometimes I have to catch myself, like I have this sticky, I got a whole thing, and I love I love paper and things like that. But it's like when we're trying to do certain things, use the technology. So then you're looking at this cluttered mess, and then you're overwhelmed. It's the snowball effect. Smart homes. Look at the way the smart homes are set up. How can you take that idea from smart homes and implement it in your life? What can you do, things that's automatic to where you can just speak something or tap something and things start rolling through. AI, personal assistants, right? And I know, especially in your if you're in entrepreneurship or intrapreneurship, you're like, well, I may not have the discretionary income to get an assistant, but there are so many actual tools that you can use to start that process. You don't have to wait until you get the extra income to come in, because I know some people, they're like, well, I'm just going to give this to a VA. I'm just going to give this to a VA. But if you don't know what to give to the VA, it's going to end up costing you more money and more time and more headache and more stress, because you're either going to have to go behind the VA to do something, or you're going to find yourself constantly, you know, correcting the VA on something, or the VA is going to tell you, you know what, you holler at me when you get yourself together, right? So why not start doing some of those things right now with some of the technology and tools that you have? You can get, like I said, AI powered coaches. There are certain things that you can work through an AI powered coach to get some things resolved. And that way, when it's time for you to work with an actual human culture consultant, you can really hit the ground running and do some deep dive work. That's why I put a lot of resources out online, and content that are as complimentary, because like if you take a deeper dive and to watch these certain things, by the time you come to me, it's almost like a flipped classroom approach. If you go ahead and do this work at home and you work through it, by the time you come to me, we can actually talk about the roadblocks and problems that you are hitting, because now you've uncovered them, versus you're coming to me, I got to lecture you on something, and then you go home and try to work on the problem, and then you frustrated, you come back to me. It's like we can eliminate all of that, and the same thing can be applied in your personal life, or even in your business or career life as well. uh, Content creation, I talked about that. SOP optimization, especially if you are starting off in your business, or if you are in business yourself right now, even if a corporation and you're looking at some of your SOPs and they're outdated, use technology to upgrade that stuff. Or learn how to, put in some prompts and spit you out some things instead of you sitting there trying to do that. Because if you're a leader, your brain power or your highest level of activities is making sure that the people implement, and you're leading the people to carry out the vision, versus you sitting there trying to write all this stuff out. We use any digital product creations, even directions, like, why use your brain power? If you got GPS, why try to prove that you know where you're going, right? And you can save that mental bandwidth and things like that. Sort your emails, budgeting, finance, and I already talked about health and fitness. It's so much that you can do on, but you have to use those things appropriately and strategically on how it benefits your life. And I want to say this because it's, you want to do it for where you are right now, but you also want to go ahead and set up for where you are going. I have this massive vision of what I want to accomplish, especially in business. So then it's like, if I want to do that, what is that going to take in my personal life for me to do that? And what systems do I need to put in place in the business life before I even get there? And instead of me trying to plan all that out, I can just go ahead and leverage technology to do that, to set some things up so that I can already start implementing with that perspective in mind. All right. So let's say, you know what, V, I hear you, but I don't want to do all of that. I still don't want to do technology. This technology thing, you act like it's going to go somewhere. I remember when I was working as a college professor, and they were like, you know what, I think you need to observe some of the other professors in your department. Okay. And I went to go see two of them, and they pulled out the overhead projector, and they were teaching the students from the overhead projector. If you don't know what an overhead projector is, just go Google it, right? And now at that time, I'm using like all the technology that was available at that time, in the course classrooms I had. I'm like using everything, right? Because part of it is my background, but even when I was a K-12 teacher, we had a lot of technology coming in, and I was on that team to help teachers, integrate the technology and learn it and stop being afraid of it. And I was like, you know what? Regardless of what you think about like my teaching methods, one, I get results, but two, I'm like, that's an insult to my intelligence and that's an insult to these students because if you're using something way back because you're comfortable and familiar with it, then you're not setting up these students for what they're going to experience when they go out into the classrooms or in other different career fields when people are expecting them to use to have a certain skill set. Now, I'm not saying that you need to, college may not teach you every single thing that you need to learn, but you do need to have a foundation part. And so I was like, I can't believe this. And back then when I was posting, I was like showing pictures and everything like that. I was a little petty, but it was even bigger. It was like I said, it was deeper than that because we're not modeling, and that was what we talked about in a previous lesson. We're not modeling success. We're not modeling what is expected for these students to go out and be successful out there, and regardless if they're whatever type of school they're going to come in, because I'm like, well, a lot of them are going to go into schools that are labeled as low income, this, that, and the other. But do you know that a lot of the schools that are labeled low income, like they have like the most resources, but that's another topic for another day. So I was just sitting there, and then that caused me to go down this rabbit hole of thinking of I saw this a lot of studies that were saying that there's a lack of tech talent available, and I don't think there's a lack of tech talent. I think that people who are either teaching or the businesses that are out there, they're not. It's a personal thing because it's like you say, oh, it's a company or it's an institution that's hindering, but there are people in those companies or institutions that are in charge of those things, and they're the ones who have those blinders on about technology or their own fear-based approach to technology and AI. And then they put that out there, whether they're teaching students or new employees coming on, even in entrepreneurship, if you're trying to shift over and you're going to a coach and they're not telling you about tech tools, even if they may not use them all, but exposing you to that. So you got to just be careful. There's not like a lack of, tech talent, but the people who I'm on the soapbox, but it's the people who are in charge or I'll say like the actual leaders who need to do some work. So if you're in a company and you are losing profits and or you're losing people and you're not leveraging technology, whether that's, the actual software or just, protocol systems or just little things like that, first you need to check yourself and say like, why am I so averse to allowing this technology come in? Or why do I not want to hand over the reins to this person who clearly that's their thing because that's your own personal issue, and then that bleeds into you, like I said, your profits or your performance or and things like that. All right, so that was my soapbox. All of that goes into learning how to use tools strategically. And you may need an outside person to come in and say, look, here's everything that we have. And I remember I used to do that, not even recognizing that was something I did from K-12 to higher ed. And I worked with some, people in some entrepreneurs in different industries. I was like, this is everything I have. I'm like, okay, this you don't need to use, this you need to double down on, or you need to go pull this in. And if you don't want to get rid of anybody, let them learn this part so that you don't have to. So depending on the resources that you have, either you may need to learn the technology before you can outsource it if you don't have the people available, or you need to know just enough about, how to delegate to someone and let them own it depending on your vision. All right. So I was going to go into some stats and everything like that, but I don't think I need to. I think I hit the point home because there is a cost for you not learning how to leverage tools strategically, whether that's an actual software, whether that's AI, whether that's a method or, any type of tool. And pencil and paper can still be a tool, but let's not say, oh, I'm just old school and that's your way of not utilizing technology. Like if it works for you and you're not overwhelmed or stressed out and all of those things, absolutely. But then you have to ask yourself, if I'm doing this, is it costing me time is it costing me time that's being taken away for me to do my highest value generating activity or my highest income generating activity, right? And if you have questions about that, let me know. But if you are like the face of the company or the face of your business or the face of your family, and you're supposed to be out there doing those things, then if it's cleaning, cooking, emailing, scheduling, if those are the things that you're not supposed to be doing and it's taking away your brain power, then that's where you need to leverage technology and use something appropriately and strategically. And if you're just solo out here, there's someone that I follow. I think his name is Justin. I can't think of his last name right now. I think it starts with an R, but he built this massive company just being one person, but he learned how to leverage technology. And I was like, you know what? You may not you may not either want to have a big team, or God may not have put that particular plan and desire in your heart for you to have this massive team. So don't feel a certain type of way. Learn how to use what you have and what's available to you. And that all boils down to that mathematical practice number 5 of using appropriate tools strategically. And then that is how you expand and leverage your leadership. But it starts with how you're thinking about that technology or those tools or those methods to get you the maximum and optimum results. All right. Thank you so much for listening and learning with me. If you want to take a deeper dive, even though I'm not, isn't the workshop that I'm hosting, it's a series of them. The first one starts Thursday and Friday. And the other ones, if you go to the link that's in the description, you'll see the dates for the other ones. It's not a technology workshop per se, but we will talk about on how to use technology to lead and leverage your expertise and your experiences. And it's not just for you to start like a coaching or consulting business. It's really about how to expand your thought leadership, and so you can have that social capital and impact that you are seeking. And then if you go watch the mini, lounge and learn series that I did from career to calling, how to master your next move, it'll give you more insight into what the workshop will be about before you dive in. Or you can go check out the masterclass session that's in my featured section on LinkedIn or in the description box below on YouTube. All right, so let me know your comments and thoughts. I do talk back, so make sure you let me know what stood out to you. Let me know if you have any other additional questions, or if you have a different perspective of what I said. I welcome all of that. All right. So thank you so much for listening and learning with me. And I will see you on the other side for our next series. Bye.